Welcome to the deep dive. This is where you send us sources you're curious about and we untack them for you. We try to get to the core insights, without all the overwhelming detail, just what really matters.
Yeah, cutting through the noise.
Exactly. So today we're digging into some excerpts from Tom Rob Smith's novel, Child 44. And these pages, wow, they really drop you into this brutal world.
They certainly do.
It's all about the struggle to survive, this constant fear and suspicion, and, well, the heavy hand of state security just pressing down on everything.
And our goal today, our mission for this deep dive, is to really get a handle on those core themes, the atmosphere that just kind of soaks through these excerpts.
Nice.
We want to look past just the plot and see the human side,
Yeah.
within that historical setting. So we'll be looking at how people coped with extreme scarcity, the sort of psychological weight of all that fear and mistrust,
Mhm.
and the tough moral spots people found themselves in,
Right.
the blurred lines.
Okay, let's get into it. And maybe start with something that just hits you right away. The sheer, raw fight for survival.
Mm-hmm.
There's this line about Maria worrying about her cat going into the woods because, well, she says, in a community where grown men chewed clods of earth, where children picked through horse shit, and women fought over the ownership of bones, Maria was sure no one believed that a cat could still be alive. I mean, that paints a picture, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It just throws you straight into this reality where basic needs are so incredibly unmet that everything's just turned upside down.
Yeah.
It's not just hunger. It's like a total breakdown of how society usually works when it comes to food. People doing the most degrading things just to stay alive.
And then we meet Oksana, the mother of Pavel and Andrei. Her whole life seems geared towards devising ways of keeping her family alive.
Yes.
We hear about their neighbor, Nikolai Ivanovich, dying after raiding a granary, uncooked grain still in his stomach. And even his widow was envied for the little bit she saved. Oksana hiding corn stalks, potato peelings. Her past defiance with the church bell.
Mm.
It all suggests this incredible, quiet resilience.
Yeah, what's really striking about Oksana is how her resistance changes. First, there's that open defiance, ringing the church bell.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing the state's power, how crushing it is, seems to have, shifted her tactics. It becomes more internal, hidden. She looks like she's complying on the outside, but secretly she's hoarding, protecting her family. She gets that fighting openly is probably suicide.
Then there's that incredibly powerful scene with the brothers Pavel and Andrei hunting a cat for food.
What?
The hunger is almost like another character in the writing. Pavel drooling, Andrei just enduring the cold, his clothes falling apart, chewing bark, just for some kind of relief.
That cat hunt, it's like their whole existence boiled down into one moment, isn't it? It takes teamwork, this grim sort of cleverness, and the prize is this tiny starved cat. Pavel's excitement is almost childlike, but then you crash back down to the grim reality of why they're doing it. It really shows how extreme hunger just strips away childhood, forces kids into these adult roles just focused on not dying.
And Andrei's reaction when Pavel leaves him alone, it's just devastating. He doesn't just miss his brother. He seems to understand deep down that Pavel was taken for food.
Exactly.
It's the same fear Maria had for her cat. A chilling parallel.
It is. Andrei's fear isn't just about being alone. It's this ingrained knowledge of the danger in their world.
Yeah.
Where desperation for food can, maybe even break family bonds. It really speaks to how those fundamental connections just erode under that kind of pressure.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit to the atmosphere of fear and suspicion. It's everywhere.
Pervasive.
We meet Leo. He's in the MGB, this state security force, basically. And Leo, at this point, he genuinely believes in what they do. He accepts the unpleasant tasks, even sacrificing individuals because he thinks it's for the greater good. He sees terror as, well, a necessary tool to protect the revolution.
And that's really a cornerstone of these kinds of authoritarian systems, isn't it? The belief that the big idea, the ideology, matters more than any single person's life.
Right.
Leo's conviction at the start shows how powerful that idea can be, how it lets people justify even brutal things as, essential for the system to survive.
And the suspicion is just baked in. The danger around the word murder when they investigate young Arkady's death, you can feel it.
Oh, yeah.
Leo has to be so careful talking to the grieving father. His colleagues get it. A murder, not a state killing or an accident. It tarnishes everyone in the room.
It's interesting, isn't it? The state needs to control the story so tightly. Murder implies they failed, that something happened outside their control, outside their ideological reasons. It brings in this unpredictability they just want to squash.
And that scene with Anatoly and Mikhail in the snow, the pitchfork.
Yeah, visceral.
It's such a raw picture of how that survival instinct can just wipe out any sense of community. Mikhail feels ashamed later, which hints maybe something human is left.
Yeah.
But his first reaction is pure, desperate self-preservation.
That scene just lays bare the brutal logic of survival there. Trust, that's a weakness.
Wow.
People are forced into these extreme acts of self-interest, even hurting others. Mikhail's guilt, like you said, shows maybe his humanity isn't totally gone, but the initial threat, it says a lot about the pressure they're under.
Even inside Leo's MGB unit, there's this feeling of ambition and just deep distrust. Vasily denouncing his own brother.
John.
It shows how loyalty to the state gets twisted into a way to climb the ladder, how easily family ties just snap under that ideology.
Vasily's actions really highlight the damage this kind of system does to relationships. Loyalty stops being about real connection or shared values. It's just strategy. Calculated moves for personal gain. The constant fear of messing up creates this environment where betrayal is, well, a smart career move sometimes.
And then Leo's investigation into Anatoly Brodsky, the planted letter. This is where you see a real internal conflict starting in Leo.
Right, a turning point.
He's working within the system of fake evidence, of assuming guilt, but you start to see him get uneasy. A crack appears in his belief.
This is huge for Leo. He's starting to see the corruption, the manipulation, right inside the institution he serves. That planted letter, even if it's standard practice, forces him to face the idea that truth and justice are being thrown away just to keep up appearances.
And this climate of distrust, it reaches right into the home, doesn't it? The surveillance of Leo's own wife, Raisa.
Yeah, nothing's private.
That inherent suspicion, even in a marriage. Leo's wrestling with his duty to the state versus his feelings for Raisa. It's such a bleak look at personal connection under that regime.
The surveillance of Raisa just underlines the state's total reach. No corner of life is off limits. Even the closest relationships are suspect. And Leo's conflict really shows the devastating personal cost,
Right.
where loving someone is constantly at odds with what the state demands.
But Raisa, she isn't just passive in all this. You see her own strength, her own resilience.
Definitely.
Her experiences with the system getting transferred, that creepy encounter on the train, her quiet defiance when they search the apartment. She's a survivor, too, in her own way.
Absolutely. Raisa shows a different kind of resistance. It's quieter, maybe, but it's this determination, refusing to be completely broken. Her little acts of defiance, they reveal this inner strength that's actually quite different from Leo's initial unquestioning loyalty.
When Leo interacts with his parents, there's this interesting shift. His MGB job gives him some power over them almost.
Yeah, the dynamic changes.
But their attitude, it's this pragmatic acceptance. Everyone knows someone who's been arrested, but we don't question it. That's a stark reminder of how deep the fear and resignation went.
Their reaction is tragic, really.
Yeah.
It shows how people get conditioned to just accept injustice as normal, unavoidable. Questioning things is too dangerous. So for many, survival means just shutting up and accepting the status quo, no matter how wrong it is.
And the complexity of Leo and Royce's relationship under all that pressure. The lack of real intimacy, those tensions always simmering underneath. It really shows how the system can just eat away at the foundations of human connection.
Yeah, the constant fear and suspicion, it builds wall. You can't have real intimacy without trust, and trust is just incredibly rare, incredibly precious in that world.
Yeah.
Even between husband and wife.
The moral ambiguity, the justification for violence, it gets even darker somehow when we meet Varlam in the children's facility. His obsession with yellow, the whole disturbing feel of the place, it feels like basic human kindness just checked out.
The internet is a stark example of the state's control reaching everywhere, even the most vulnerable. Varlam's fixation on yellow, which might seem innocent, becomes suspect there. The whole institution seems to breed neglect, a kind of dehumanization.
And the militia's approach to the murder investigation. They just want a simple answer. Varlam, the simpleton, the outsider. A convenient confession solves the problem. It highlights how the system cares more about order and control than actual justice.
Right. By pinning it on Varlam, an anomaly, the state keeps its story straight, the story of a just, orderly society. Blaming someone on the fringes means they don't have to look at systemic failures or, deeper, more uncomfortable truths about their society.
But Leo, he's really struggling internally now. He's starting to see the potential for massive injustice within the system he's part of. That casual use of precautionary measure to justify extreme actions, it's chilling how normalized the brutality seems.
Leo's internal conflict is key here. He's starting to realize the system he believed in actually allows, even encourages, profound injustice. That precautionary measure thinking shows how easily violence and oppression get rationalized, dressed up as necessary for the greater good.
And finding the second body, the boy in the woods, Leo's agony over whether to report it. It just hammers home how the state's image trumps everything. Individual justice doesn't stand a chance. His silence in the end is, well, damning.
His decision to stay silent says so much about the fear, about understanding that the truth itself can be dangerous. Protecting the state's perfect image becomes way more important than finding justice for a murdered child.
So finally, we see this big shift in loyalties, in beliefs. Leo gets demoted, exiled, he loses all his privilege.
Yeah, stripped bare.
And yet he keeps pursuing the truth. Despite the huge personal cost, it shows a massive transformation in him.
It really marks his journey of disillusionment, doesn't it? Once he's lost the power and status, he sees the system he served much more clearly, more critically. His relentless pursuit of the truth now, despite the risks, shows he's developing his own moral code, separate from his old loyalty to the state.
And Raisa's view changes too. Her disillusionment grows alongside Leo's. They meet others hurt by the system, and then the truth about the killer finally comes out. Andre.
Devastating.
His actions rooted in those horrifying childhood experiences of just trying to survive, it all contributes to shattering Leo's original faith.
Yeah, discovering Andre is the killer and seeing that direct line from his brutal childhood survival to his horrific crimes, it's deeply disturbing. It shows how extreme hardship can just warp people in unimaginable, tragic ways. For Leo, this is like the final blow. It shatters his belief in the system's justice and forces him to face a brutal reality, both about society and himself.
So, wrapping up this deep dive, we've really explored a world just choked by scarcity and fear, where trust breaks down, relationships fray, and people make these awful moral compromises just to get by. We've seen the truly devastating human costs of that kind of unchecked state power.
And the real aha moments, I think, come when you see how all these different threads connect. Maria and her cat, Oksana hiding food, the brothers hunting, the murder investigation, Leo's doubts. They aren't separate stories. They all weave together into this really cohesive, deeply unsettling picture of life under that regime.
Which leaves us with a final thought, maybe a troubling one, for you to mull over. In the most extreme situations, how are individual actions shaped? But also, what happens to morality itself? To the bonds that hold people together?
Yeah.
What are the long-term consequences for a society that's built on fear and suspicion? It definitely makes you think about the human cost.
It really does. Looking at these excerpts gives us this glimpse into a world where right and wrong get dangerously fuzzy. If you want the full picture, the whole arc of these characters and themes, we definitely recommend checking out the full novel, Child 44.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.